Hello, hello. So I am bored. And what better thing to do than to go through the book of Daniel because it's interesting. And I know a lot of people were looking forward to this. So let's go through Daniel 3. This is where we encounter the fiery furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego cast into the fiery furnace for not worshiping the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had built. There's a couple of interesting points about this. And first and foremost is that it has a direct tie to another statue that will be built in the book of Revelation that people will be required to worship. And if they don't, they're going to die. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with this. This is the beast and the false prophet at the midpoint of the week. The beast is not actually here until the midpoint of the week. I'm going to clarify this very briefly, but the king and the prince are both mentioned in the book of Daniel as we get there. If you have heard me talk about this, you have heard me talk about prince lawful versus king lawless. In Daniel 9, there is a prophecy. The prince that shall come, the people of the prince that shall come, are the ones who destroyed the city and the sanctuary in 70 AD. The prince that shall come is the one that's going to confirm the covenant with Israel for 1 week. Ezekiel 40 through 48, specifically in chapters 45, 46, talks about the prince's part. Now, this is talking about the millennial kingdom because Daniel also refers to Messiah, the prince, capitalized, differentiating him from the one who comes in his place, who is the prince that shall come. Daniel talks about 5 princes. We're going to learn all about these. He talks about the prince of Persia, the prince of Grecia, Michael, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, Messiah, the prince, capitalized, and the prince that shall come in the place of Messiah, the prince, the one who comes in the place of Christ, Revelation 6 versus Revelation 19. In Ezekiel's end times vision, and this all ties into which temple gets built to start the 70th week. It's Ezekiel's, because that is the one that they're going to build, because it specifically states that when their Messiah comes, that's the one he's going to have his rest in. That's the place where his feet are going to touch. So when they accept the prince that shall come in the place of Messiah, the prince, which temple does their Old Testament say they're going to build for him? There's only one left. Right now, and just to kind of segue, because people have said, well, they're looking to build this temple and this spot, whatever. Is there a Messiah here right now? No. So they're looking to build a temple. Scripture points to the temple that will get built when their Messiah comes. So a temple versus the temple all hinges upon the physical presence of a guy who isn't here yet. But when they build it, he's going to be here. Just to kind of clarify that, regardless. In Ezekiel's end times vision of what's going to be going on in the kingdom with Messiah, the prince, who Israel will not recognize at first. They're going to accept a guy who comes in his place, which is why Daniel's prophecy talks about the prince that shall come. So when Ezekiel's end times vision talks about the prince's part, that's going to be the prince that shall come, doing this in the 70th week, versus Messiah, the prince, doing it in the kingdom. Get this whole one who comes in the place of Christ business. The Old Testament prophecies tell you what's going to be happening during the 70th week by virtue of telling you what's going to be happening in the kingdom and calling both Messiah and the Antichrist both the prince. There is a prince's part. Read Ezekiel's vision and you will see what Prince Lawful is going to do. He's going to confirm the covenant with Israel for 1 week. The strength behind which is the temple, and there's a prince's part at that temple. Prince Lawful is behind the reinstitution of all of the Mosaic statutes, the rebuilding of the temple, all of that necessarily. He's got to be. Because in the kingdom, Messiah the Prince is going to be doing that. So when you're talking about the real guy versus the fake guy, you know what the fake guy's got to be doing because you know what the real guy is going to be doing according to the prophecy. This is why Ezekiel's vision is so important. However, when Prince Lawful's time is done, King Lawless comes on the scene. This is the guy who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worship, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is Daniel 9:27. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the lawful things to cease, the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations is going to make it desolate by breaking their very first commandment, which is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. This is specifically cited in Daniel 11:36, not as Prince Lawful, but as King Lawless, the king. Not Daniel 9's prince that shall come, but the king shall do according to his will. He shall exalt himself, shall magnify himself above every god, shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. So you've got two different dudes in the 70th week with two different purposes. The first guy, Prince Lawful, is to confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. King Lawless is in the midst of the week. He's going to cause what Prince Lawful established to cease. Remnant's going to flee. Great prince, great eagle, wings of a great eagle, Michael the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, is going to take them to the wilderness, into their place where they're going to be nourished for a time times half time from the face of the serpent. And then you learn Matthew 24, after that flight, it says that if they shall say, he's in the desert, go not there, or he's in the secret chamber, go not there, for then shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall deceive many, insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect. Why will it not be possible? Because they're going to be gone, out of the range. Why is this important? Because in the midst of the week, after this King Lawless guy comes on the scene and causes desolation at the temple, after he ascends out of the bottomless pit and goes about his destruction, the beast, the first beast from Revelation 13, the second beast from Revelation 13, these lawless people, he's going to do what? He's going to cause all that wonder after the beast. Who's able to make war with him? If you're not familiar with Revelation 13, read it. Otherwise, hopefully you are and you understand what I'm saying here. He's going to cause all that did not flee and all that can be deceived to be deceived into doing what? Worshiping the beast, taking the mark of the beast, or worshiping the image to the beast. And those that don't, what's going to happen? They're going to die. On a smaller scale, this is precisely what Daniel 3 is talking about. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, shall do according to his will. This is not specifically what Revelation 13 is talking about. It's talking about the end times, definitely not Nebuchadnezzar. But there is a preview of what is to come based on the story from Daniel 3 and Nebuchadnezzar. The king causing everyone to worship a statue. And if they don't, they're going to die. Except what happens in Revelation to those that die because they don't worship the beast, the image of the beast, or take the mark of the beast? They're saved. They're going to be in heaven, and they're going to be resurrected at the end of the 70th week after the beast and false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Satan's bound for 1,000 years. They're going to be resurrected, and they're going to share the rule and reign with Christ for the 1,000-year kingdom. So clearly they're not going to be worse off. Were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego worse off for not worshiping Nebuchadnezzar's statue, even though he tried to kill him? And when he tried to kill them, how did he do it? By making the furnace 7 times hotter than it normally would, because he was in such a rage that they would dare disobey him. Daniel 3:1. I told you Daniel has a lot of imagery for the end times. We have not even gotten to the majority of it yet. We will get there, though. Daniel 3:1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 3 square cubits, 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof was 6 cubits. It's interesting because when you tie in this 60 and 6, you're have kind of another tie to the Revelation image of the beast, mark of the beast, because what's the number? 603 score and 6. How big was this statue? 60 and 6 cubits. So it's just, there's kind of a lot of ties here. Again, they're not the same thing. It's Old Testament imagery to paint a similar picture of the end times and what will be going on. So the breadth of the statue was 6 cubes. The height was 60 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together under the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up." It's kind of interesting because when you think about other religions and the sounds that are played at certain times, and they're supposed to do the same thing, like bow and pray, over in that region, that same region where Babylonia was, you see the same kind of thing in other religions that are opposed to God or don't serve God in the same way. It's just kind of interesting. Whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. The contrast of this in the end times, when there is this worship of the beast, this worship of the image of the beast, or this taking the mark of the beast, it is they who will be tormented with fire, not the ones who refuse. This is the opposite situation. Is in Daniel, the ones who refused got thrown into the fire. In the end times, when these options are commanded and not followed, it is they who will be tormented with fire. The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast, his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and with brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever." Ascendeth is a present tense. It is a perpetual present tense. "They have no rest day nor night who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name." So the very opposite thing will happen in the end times to the people who do what Nebuchadnezzar was commanding people to do. Like I said, Daniel's got a lot of ties to the end. "Whosoever falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, the flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore, at the time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage, he wasn't just angry, he was in a rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? How dare you people think that you can just do whatever you want, contrary to what I've stated, and you think, what, your God's just going to save you? Let's test that theory. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. They're not mincing their words. They're putting it very plainly to the king. Our God will, because he can, and we're going to show you. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. So he got so enraged that he really just wanted to go for overkill. Not just kill them, but heat the furnace 7 times hotter than normal. And it's actually going to kill other people who get too close to it, but not the guys he wants to kill. He commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, their hats, and other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. There's nothing wrong with them. So there's more than we put there, and there's nothing wrong with these guys. But the ones who put them there died because they got too close because it was so hot. The form of the 4th is like the Son of God. And this is just something that we should all know, but in the midst of every single trial, every single test, he is always going to be there with us. Always, without fail. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come here. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power. Nor was an hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any God except their own God. Therefore, I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces. And their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. He's certainly learning his lessons, isn't he? Daniel told him all about the fact that his kingdom is going to come to an end. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego put him in his place that you are not sovereign king. You are not the king over all. We serve a true and living God, and he is supreme and sovereign over all. So Nebuchadnezzar is going to learn more hard stories. When next we meet, we will go through Daniel 4. And he's going to learn another hard story. So if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you later.